The typical American worker has $955 saved for retirement, not $955,000. $955. That number comes from the National Institute on Retirement Security, and it includes everyone. Workers with a 401k, workers without one. The full picture. Stick around, because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the exact policy decision made in a single year with almost no public debate that built this number. Not an accident, a decision. And once you see how it happened, you're going to understand exactly why just save more was never going to be the fix. Let's get into it. So here's the story most of us were told about retirement. Work hard for 30 or 40 years. Save consistently. Your employer chips in. Your investments grow. And at 65, you cross a finish line into the reward. Travel, grandchildren, rest. That story isn't a lie exactly. It's just incomplete. Because for most Americans, it describes a retirement that belongs to someone else. Here's what we're covering today. What retirement used to actually guarantee. And who guaranteed it. The single decision that quietly transferred that guarantee onto you. What that transfer actually cost in dollars across a working life, and the one number coming at the end that tells you exactly how this is going to end if nothing changes. Let's start with what retirement used to look like, because the contrast is the whole point. For most of the 20th century, American retirement ran on something called a defined benefit pension. The name tells you everything. Your employer defined the benefit, a monthly check for life, based on your years of service and your salary. You didn't pick stocks. You didn't manage risk. You showed up, you worked, and the company on the other end of that relationship carried the responsibility of making sure the money was there when you needed it. Pensions weren't perfect. They often excluded women, part-time workers, people who changed jobs too often. But for the workers who had them, pensions delivered something that's almost extinct in today's financial conversation. Certainty. You knew what you were getting. You could actually plan a life around it. Now here's the part nobody votes on because nobody got the chance to. In 1978, a provision was quietly added to the tax code. Section 401k. It wasn't built as a retirement system for everyday workers. It was a tax break for executives, a way for high earners to defer income and lower their tax bill. But employers noticed something. Pensions were expensive. They were a long-term liability sitting on the company's books for decades. A 401k plan did something pensions never could. It moved that liability off the company's balance sheet and onto yours. Through the 80s and 90s, the shift accelerated. Pensions got frozen, closed to new hires, replaced one company at a time with 401k plans that look generous on paper and quietly transferred every dimension of risk onto the person least equipped to carry it. You didn't lose your job in that transition. You didn't see a pay cut. What you lost was subtler. The guarantee that someone with actual financial expertise was managing your future. By the time most workers noticed the shift had happened, it was already finished. So what actually got handed to you? Market risk. The risk that your investments lose value at exactly the wrong moment. Longevity risk. The risk of outliving your own money. Behavioral risk. The risk that, under pressure in a downturn, you panic and pull your money out at the worst possible time. These aren't simple decisions. Professional money managers with decades of training get them wrong constantly. And the system was redesigned around the assumption that ordinary workers, with no training, no guidance, and zero margin for error, would somehow get them right. The responsibility moved. The education never followed. And here's where it gets uneven, because this system doesn't fail everyone equally. It works reasonably well if you have a stable job, decades of consistent income, an employer offering a generous match, and the financial knowledge to make good decisions for 40 straight years. That's a narrow slice of the American workforce. If your income is inconsistent, gig work, part-time hours, time out of the workforce raising kids or caring for a parent, you can only contribute when you're earning. Which means the people with the least stable financial lives end up with the least retirement security. Every time. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, the advice to contribute 10% of your income isn't a strategy. It's a number that doesn't exist in your budget. If this is landing for you, if you've looked at your own retirement account and felt that drop in your stomach, hit like, subscribe so the next video actually reaches you, and send this to someone who needs to see these numbers laid out plainly. Understanding this is the first step. It's not the only one. Now let's go back to that number from the opening, because here's where it gets real. $955. That's the median for all working-age Americans, once you include the 56 million workers who don't even have access to an employer plan. Even among people who do have retirement savings, the median balance is around $40,000. Financial experts will tell you that a comfortable retirement requires over $1 million. The gap between those two numbers isn't a planning failure. It's the predictable result of an experiment that was never actually tested before it was rolled out to an entire country. And here's the mechanism behind it. The part that explains why working harder inside the system doesn't close the gap. The tax benefits of a 401k scale with your tax bracket. A deduction is worth more to someone earning $200,000 than someone earning $40,000. The system rewards saving most generously at exactly the income level where saving was already easiest, and gives the least support to the people who need it most. Meanwhile, Social Security, which was never designed to be anyone's entire retirement income, has quietly become exactly that for millions of people. The average benefit covers roughly half of what a typical retiree actually needs to live on. That's the gap, and for a huge number of Americans, there's nothing built to fill it. This is why you see what you see. The 70-year-olds still stocking shelves, not because they love the work, but because stopping isn't financially possible. The 68-year-old driving for a rideshare app between doctor's appointments. The worker who planned to retire at 65, still at the desk at 72, because a single market downturn at exactly the wrong moment erased a decade of growth they never got back. None of these are stories about people who failed to plan. Most of them planned as carefully as the system allowed. What they couldn't plan around was a system that was never built to deliver the retirement it promised to anyone who simply worked hard enough to earn it. So here's the question worth sitting with. We took a retirement system that required sophisticated, decades-long financial decision-making. We stripped away the institution that used to make those decisions for you. And then we never built the education that would have made the new system survivable. When people retire with nothing, or don't retire at all, we call that a personal failure. But if the entire structure was redesigned to move risk onto people who were never trained to carry it, whose failure is that, really? Other countries looked at this exact problem and made different choices. Public pensions, mandatory savings, social insurance that spreads the risk of aging across an entire society instead of dropping it on one person at a time. That system isn't a fantasy. It already exists. Just not here. You didn't build the system you're retiring into. You just have to live inside it, which makes it worth understanding completely, instead of quietly hoping it works out. Next episode, we're stepping back even further. Because retirement isn't the only place this divide shows up. We're going to look at what it actually costs a young adult to start their financial life today, at zero, in an economy that wasn't built with them in mind. And there's a number coming in that one about student debt that's going to change how you think about everything we've covered so far. Click the next video. This series only gets sharper from here.